Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. It's really lovely to see you all. We're always delighted when people come on a weekend. It's lovely to have you here. So, for those that don't know me yet, I'm Laura Connolly, and I'm Dance Development Manager at EFDSS. Over the past couple of months, we've been receiving quite a few inquiries and requests for guidance around getting back to dancing again in person. It's been really clear that callers and organisers are wanting to run dances again back in person, but to ensure their participants are still feeling safe and comfortable. So Kerry and I put our heads together to find the best way we could do this. It's all just really highlighted, as was everything, the lack of clear-cut government guidelines at the minute, and the sorry, my screen keeps disappearing. There we go. Where am I? Yeah, just that we need support for the social folk dance community. Every dance is different, whether it be the venue, the style of dance that you're running, the age of participants. So it's really hard for us to just provide a generic answer which suits and covers everything. We can advise about risk assessing. We've got some information on our EFDSS website. If anyone wants to have a look there, we'll pop some links to those things in a little bit. But yeah, I think the best way for us just to go about this is just to provide this space for callers and organisers of dances to pool intelligence and to share experiences that we've been having already, and we can pick each other's brains. So that's what we're going to do this morning. So we've brought together some really fantastic speakers this morning. Here we go. All of them come with a wealth and variety of experience in the social folk dance world, and who have got recent experience of being back to dancing in person already. Shortly, we're going to hear from Jane Curry and Andrew Findlay from the London Barn Dance Company. We have John Sweeney with us, organiser of Kent Ceilidhs and Contrafusion, and Dr. Wendy Timmons, Vice Governor of the Traditional Dance Forum of Scotland and Programme Director of the MSc Dance Science Education Programme at the University of Edinburgh. So very exciting people to be listening to. I'm really, really looking forward to hearing all of those presentations. Very quickly, before we get to hear all those amazing things, we have a little bit of exciting news. Inspired by Traditional Dance Forum of Scotland, we are delighted to announce that we are going to be offering some mini grants for social folk dance organisers. We're really keen to be supporting this area. It's just really important. And so we're going to be seeking proposals from individuals, groups and organisers who are wishing to start up events or return back to social folk dancing, because it's just so important that we manage to get this all back on its feet again. So there are mini grants of up to £500 available. There's information literally as I speak has just gone up on our EFDSS website. So there'll be links posted in the chat, I'm sure, to all of those things. You can have a little look in the break, and then there'll be perhaps a chance to discuss those things a little bit later on. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first speakers, Jane Curry and Andrew Findlay from the London Barn Dance Company. They run the acclaimed monthly contra dance at Cecil Sharp House. They're currently trialling a hybrid model of live streaming and live in-person dancing, and have just run their first hybrid dance at Cecil Sharp House. So really looking forward to hearing how all of that went. So over to you, Jane and Andrew. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hello, this is us in this corner or wherever you happen to see us. So London Barn Dance, for those that don't know it, it's a contra series these days. We started off largely a square dance with Bernard Chalk in the 1980s.
1982, Bernie started it. We picked it up in 1983. Please don't do the arithmetic.
So it's been running for a long time, monthly at C Sharp, every month except August in most years. Contra dance these days, largely, we get about 100, 130 dancers at most events. Very lively, energetic sort of social dance form.
Also, a very wide range of ages we've had at Cecil Sharp House, certainly over the last 10 years. So we seem to have picked up quite a lot of the 20-some to 30-some, as well as people who've been dancing, well, like us forever, some even longer. So a huge age range.
And that is a very healthy thing. It very nearly died out sometime in the 90s because we were the youngest people there for years and years and years, and everybody else was getting older and falling off their perches. But finally, things turned around, and actually having a web presence probably had a lot to do with that. So yes, that's our normal pattern, and our last normal dance was in March 2020. As was probably the case for a lot of people. It was probably about half the usual size because people were already getting worried. We didn't run anything in the April because the government changed the rules a few days ahead of our normal date and everything shut down. But then we came back in May with the virtual events, and Ali Messer had quite a lot to do with the ideas that do that.
As did Rodri Davis on the Call Links side. And between them, they did a huge amount to keep things going.
Set the pattern.
Everything changed every month, as many of you have no doubt found.
So these were really very different from our live events. We've run 15 of them pretty much every month since then. We ran last August as well, not this August. They're very carefully planned, timed to the minute, lots of people involved, a lot of pre-recorded material, musicians passing stuff from one to another, recording over it, callers putting calls on, lots of video. We had backup plans and backup plans for the backup plans and all that. It was very much like running a TV station. So clearly we're not going to run a hybrid on that sort of detailed level. If you look at our website, barndance.org, you'll find links to YouTube, and a lot of the material is on there. It's been very interesting seeing what is possible in these rather weird circumstances, but it's sort of time to move on. So we started asking for input on what people thought would be possible, what they'd like to see once things opened up again.
One of the things that we did with the virtual events was we had a virtual interval, and we used breakout rooms, because in the heyday, we probably had nearer 200 than 100 connections last winter. And that's far too many to have an interval and have people chat. So we used breakout rooms of 10 or a dozen initially, and then latterly we let people choose their own breakout rooms. I think it was April, we asked people if they wanted a topic for the interval, just to think about how we might move from where we were then to where we all wanted to be. And we captured that and put that on the website. And there were all sorts of different ideas. The people that you perhaps thought would be gung-ho sometimes weren't, and vice versa. So what I would say, if you've not done any of this, is don't make any assumptions about the audience you might think you know. They may have different ideas.
So yes, we were hoping to have our first physical dance in July, but the rules didn't change quite early enough for that. Though we did manage to have a couple of real satellite dances. So we ran the normal virtual thing, and particularly the St Albans group, who've been involved with us for quite a while now. They had a get-together of however many people they were allowed in somebody's back garden, and that was a very popular thing, because a lot of other dancers would then pin their video feed because they could then get the impression of dancing in a room full of people. So that was the first bit of halfway house, if you like. And we began to see people getting back together. So really our first chance for a proper dance at C Sharp was September, last weekend. We knew that many people would still be nervous. And of course we still had an enormous number of Zoom followers who couldn't turn up even if they wanted to, because as Jane said, we had a lot of connections. Sometimes I think we got up to about 130, 140 Zoom sessions.
Oh, we were up to 160, 170, I think, in January.
Yeah. And they came from all over the world. So we got the obvious people that we know, but we'd also got quite a few on continental Europe. We'd got connections from Canada, USA, and even Australia at 5 a.m. were turning up sometimes. So we didn't want to lose them entirely. So we thought we've really got to try and do something for them and do something hybrid. But first we had to be able to run the physical dance. So we needed risk assessments and things like that. And I probably went rather overboard on that. You'll find that on our website. I'll paste it into the chat in due course when we can. It's in 2 bits now. There's the actual risk assessment, which is sort of written to keep the health and safety people happy, which is referenced and all that sort of stuff to all the background. And then there's the advice to dancers. And we wanted to do the right things, the useful things, rather than the knee-jerk stuff that a lot of other people had been doing. Of course, the biggest thing on that is effective masks, and we couldn't see any way that people were going to dance in masks, or at least not most of them. In fact, we'd had quite a bit of very strong feedback from the community that people did not consider it worth coming to a physical dance if they had to dance with just one partner and wear a mask. So obviously that was not going to work. We knew some people would want to wear masks anyway, and that's fine. So we included all of that in the advice. We did the sums, and we normally have about 100 people. We thought we probably wouldn't get to that number, but it was a good round number to calculate on. And I reckon that at the moment we would expect about 0.3 infected people at each dance. And you can see in the risk assessment why I came to that number. So we planned on the basis that there would be about 1 infectious person. And it was a bit difficult to work out who they might be able to infect from there. My best guess is about 1 person, ranging from 0 up to about 10. We didn't make a big thing of this, but we said, here are the numbers. You've got to make your own decision as to whether this is appropriate to you.
And I guess we're now a week down the line and we're still fine. We've probably mixed as much as anybody. We've not heard of anybody else who's had a problem.
Yeah. Oh, Bob seems to be dying. Oh. Right, okay. Yes. Yeah. So in the event, we had 45 people on the floor.
And 45 connections on Zoom.
We did.
It's just about evenly split.
Yes. And the other thing that is really important there, from a risk assessment point of view, is the air handling. And thank you, Cecil Sharp House, for finally fixing the air handling. And it really is quite good now. And in fact, I think by the second half, we had it turned up to full speed. And it wasn't making a crazy amount of noise, and you could feel the air moving everywhere. And that will make dancing a lot more comfortable as well as a lot safer for people. So that's a good thing. And for events at the house, it's worth telling people about. It's definitely worth doing. So other things we did some badges. So red, yellow, green. That means please don't ask me to dance. I might get on the floor or I might not. That's sort of arm's length, please. And that's dance like it never happened. We've run out of green ones very nearly. I think there was 1 or 2 reds and 1 or 2 yellows taken, but they disappeared really quite fast. So people were basically quite happy to dance with each other. But of course, the ones who were really not didn't come. Interestingly, about 10 to 15 people wore masks. The ordinary surgical ones, not the really good ones. And it was almost entirely the younger generation, the 30-somethings. We didn't ask why. That was part of the policy. We were not going to ask anybody about anything. We might ask 1 or 2 of them quietly later. My guess is that they are not far enough down the vaccination route to feel happy. And some of them, obviously, it's more critical to them that they don't get ill. And they've got the day jobs to go to. We can work from here. What else have we done? Oh, broadcast. Yes, the broadcast side of this also took quite a lot of effort. We went to C Sharp, we checked out the internet and all of that. We decided we were going to run our own Wi-Fi access points because the public Wi-Fi in places like C Sharp wants you to sign in, and it tends to kick you out every half hour or so. This is no good for broadcast. You've got to have something reliable. In the end, we actually needed 2 Wi-Fi access points of our own, though I will admit that the second one was there to run our credit card machine, which wouldn't work on the C Sharp Wi-Fi either. We took a feed from the band mixer via the stage box. There's a collection of XLR lines run under the floor to the back, and we ran a little corral at the back for our production team. We had 2 cameras, one on the band and one on the dancers. We didn't cover the whole hall, so if people didn't want to appear in the video, there was a space with no cameras.
One of the points of running the camera on the dancers was to show those people who were a bit too nervous to come that we were actually having a whale of a time, and I think that worked very well.
Yeah, that was the real reason for doing the hybrid, to show that here were people enjoying themselves and not falling down dead. It is actually a possible thing to do. It took quite a few people. There were 2 of us on the tech side setting it up. We got in early. It probably took an hour and a half. It would be quicker next time, probably. It then took 1 techie full-time, that was Thomas, to manage the broadcast, 1 on-site host, which was Ali, 1 cloud steward, which wasn't enough, and we had our usual collection of assistants on site as well. So that was Jane on the door with some other people as well.
We felt it was really important to welcome people at the door who explained the coloured badges and so on, and just encourage people to come in and enjoy themselves.
But then we reverted to our normal roles during the event, which is usually Jane on the door and a fair bit of the first half, me running around looking after the band and dragging people onto the floor if they're a bit hesitant. And that all seemed to work very well. Actually, it was very easy because mostly the people who came are regulars.
But not quite
entirely.
All.
No, there were still some newcomers.
One of the lovely things was that we tended to lose the younger generation throughout lockdown. And quite a few of them came straight back on Saturday. And it was super to see that. And we just used our normal Contra Corner mail list and the London Barn Dance mail list. The St Albans crowd helped publicise it. But by whatever means, those that hadn't been with us for 15 months, some of them came right back.
In person. And the other interesting thing, our online events were normally an hour and a half. We weren't sure how long people would stick around, but we broadcast the whole 3-hour normal dance, and pretty near the entire virtual audience stuck with it right through, and said they were very happy with all of that. So they also liked seeing the real dance in progress. The only other thing on our list here, I think, is that we now take credit card payments, because I don't know about you, but I've stopped carrying coins. Just nobody finds a use for them anymore, so you haven't got any. So we thought we really have to go over to doing card payments, and it was about half.
I've read we took 12 or 13 card payments, and there were 45 heads in the hall. So, you know, given that some people comes in twos, it was probably a third would choose to pay by card.
And I think that will only go up. Yeah, whether we got it right all the time, I still don't know.
Right.
PayPal and Zettel and so on are a bit of a painful bunch to work with, but
it's doable eventually.
It is. So yeah, I mean, there we are, from virtual complete through to the first of the hybrids. Seems to be pretty successful. We actually broke even on the event,
which we didn't
absolutely amazed. We were expecting to be losing money for a year. And in fact, quite a bit of that. Oh, we didn't talk about the tip jar, did we?
We should.
All the virtual events, obviously, were not free to run. And we expected to lose money there. We probably did. But we set up a donations system through PayPal. And people have been very generous, which has definitely helped to keep things running and allow us to feed some money to the bands and callers who hadn't had any gig income at all through lockdown.
And we've had a huge amount of support from really quite a huge team of bands and callers and people like Thomas and Rachel doing tech for us.
Yeah, so that's going to carry on now, probably to the end of this year.
Doing hybrids.
Doing hybrids. Whether we'll carry on into the new year, we'll have to see. It is a lot of extra work. We'll obviously get better at it, but it still requires extra people and space and time and things like that. So we'll see.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrew and Jane. That was really, really useful and really just great. We're seeing loads of rounds of applause. So yeah, that's just great that you're up and running and you found it successful. It's brilliant. We've got time for questions. So if anybody wants to, Kerry gave some little instructions. If you want to pop your little hand symbol up, or if you can't find that, just give us a wave and fire away to Andrew and Jane with any questions you've got. Have a look. I can see Jill Thompson. And you're still muted.
No, I was just applauding the presentation, but also I attended most of the Zoom sessions and they were absolutely brilliant. Nothing like dancing in person, obviously, but just great fun. And thank you so much for all your effort. I admire all your tech ability as well and the support you've had, which has just been brilliant. Real good team you've got together there.
We have learned a lot about a number of things we never expected to, like video editing, things like that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jill. I can see Sue last, you giving us a wave there. Oh, you're still muted there, Sue.
Better. I did a lot of calling. Well, I ran 3 a week all the way through lockdown, but I altered the dances a little bit just to make it more viable for doing it on your own, because it's not much fun just standing there waiting for somebody else to do something. When you're doing a combination, presumably you revert to proper dancing, do you?
We took a conscious decision last Saturday that we were running a live dance with a Zoom feed rather than a Zoom dance that would cater for people where there were 2 or 3 there. So yes, we had Jeff Cubitt calling. We had Linda and Gareth ECDB as the musicians. And basically we said, you're doing a live gig. I think partly we're lucky in that a lot of the people on Zoom have been Zoom dancing to us for 15 months and they could cope. I think Jeff brought his programme down perhaps a little from what it would have been 3 years back. So he was conscious that there were Zoom dancers out there. But as I say, fundamentally, we took a conscious decision. It was a live dance.
Yeah,
thank you.
The earlier ones, where there have been remote groups, the callers tried quite hard to do things that would work for both. But that is quite a load on the caller, and requires a certain amount of modification to the dance. Charlotte did some very amazing ones. She was calling for ones, twos, groups, and Minecraft. So there was quite a big Minecraft group at one point.
Yeah. Lynn Render also wrote some very good lockdown dances that were adaptable if you were on your own, or would work if you were dancing for real, so to speak. So if anybody wants some halfway house ones, I think they're on the website.
They're on the Odyssey website, yeah.
The other thing that if you want to run a dance with no partner swings, John McDonald from Australia contributed, I think it was 140 dances he'd collected with no partner swings in them that they'd been running in Melbourne.
No, partner swings only.
Sorry,
no corner swings.
Sorry, partner swings only, yeah. So, and he's very happy for anybody to go and pick those up and use them.
Ottawa did some quite good ones as well. Yeah. Don't know if you came across those.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that. Interestingly, our audience, when they actually physically got back together, really weren't worried about that.
Thank you.
As I said earlier, that might reflect just those people who came. Of course, those who didn't come, we don't know why or what would necessarily make them happier to come.
Brilliant. I'm just going to, we've got another minute and there's lots of us here who haven't got a screen on, so I can't see if anyone's waving frantically wanting to ask a question. So shout up if you want to unmute quickly. That's fine. And if not, I can see Helen Copperthwaite.
Well, it's so long, it's not all in the picture. Yeah, we did our first live dance last night, and interestingly, we gave them the option at the beginning. You can either keep it hands-free, and when doing, 4 changes, do it without touching hands. Nobody took any notice of that. They were all straight in. They were there because they wanted to be there, and they took part in every dance that we offered them without any difficulty. So I think there's a certain amount of risk averseness, and people who, as has already been said, are not happy won't come. But the ones who come are generally very, very positive. And we had a very, very positive evening with everybody being very happy about what we did. Hand sanitizer was there. People used it initially the first thing in the evening. And I noticed during the course of the evening, it wasn't used so frequently. So their anxiety levels also dropped during the course of those 2 hours.
Excellent. I think that reflects exactly what we saw, because in fact, Englefield Green then ran their contra on the Sunday afternoon immediately after us, and it was exactly the same as our dance and yours. People started off slightly nervous, but those that came basically had a ball.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Well, we're just about out of time. Thank you very much, Andrew and Jane. I can see there's a couple more questions. We are going to have much more time after we've heard our other 2 speakers to share our thoughts and have some discussion. So I'm going to move on now. So keep, if you can keep those questions later for Andrew and Jane, because I'm really keen to introduce John Sweeney. If you'd like to give us a wave. Good morning, John. John's going to be our next speaker. John is a folk dance caller and organiser of Kent Ceilidhs and Contrafusion, and he's already started back some of his regular dances, and he's going to share with us how this has been going and how he's working on building confidences with all of his dancers as they return as well. So I'm going to thank Andrew and Jane one more time. We'll give you a round of applause. Thank you so much, and we'll say welcome to John. Over to you.
Hi, I've been running dances in Ashford and Maidstone now down in Kent for the last 10 years or so. And we were very upset, of course, when it all shut down. Over the course of the lockdown, we sent out email newsletters every few months to try and keep in touch with people and to let them know what opportunities there were. So we were advertising Jane and Andrew's events and other things that were being advertised on things like the Ceilidh forum, so that people could get out and do Zoom dancing if they wanted to. We ourselves wrote a couple of solo and duo dances and produced some videos of swing workshops, 20 different ways to swing, to help pass the time. But we were frustrated because normally Karen and myself dance 3 or 4 times a week. We do lots of different dance styles. We did get constant demand from people saying, when can we dance again? When can we dance again? And so we wanted to get started as soon as possible. One point to make is that we are not a folk dance club. We are a small business. So there's no committee. There's just Karen and myself make the decisions. So the first challenge, of course, was the government regulations. Whereas on May the 17th this year, we started back into Morris dancing with risk assessments and all sorts of care by referring to it as physical exercise class with qualified teacher. We felt happy to do a Morris practice indoors and be within the regulations. But that still precluded social dance because Karen and myself certainly didn't want to do anything that was just a mock-up. I know thousands of people across the world have enjoyed Zoom dancing with 1 or 2 people, but it's never turned us on. We wanted to do real dancing, holding hands in lines, in circles, swinging, everything else that makes up the social event that is a country dance. When the lockdown was in sight then, so we started looking at what else we'd need to do. And the first thing, of course, you've got to do is check the regulations laid down by the venue. All the village halls and other venues have their own COVID protocols laid down. You must get those from the village hall and write a protocol that matches and that meets their requirements. So we did that. Some of them were quite stringent. We worked on making it work out okay, and we made all our bookings. And then we started trying to get people interested. So the next thing we did in all the newsletters was saying, we're going to start as soon as we can, but we need to know that you want to do it. And in order to cut down the time for sign-in when you get to the dance, please pre-register. So we got about 40 dancers to send us their current email addresses, phone numbers, names, and everything, so that we could make a register up. So we always have a door register. We know who's coming generally, and we have everybody set up with, we've got their name, we've got the date, and we make sure that the vast majority are pre-registered. As you can see at the bottom, we've been running them for 10 weeks now. As you can see at the bottom, Karen's had to handwrite in all the people who turned up at the door without pre-registering. We also, as Jane and Roger were saying, we got ourselves a zettel. It only costs £30, and out of a £5 entrance fee, they take 9p. You have to link it to a phone, and you've got to tap about 3 times on the phone for each transaction, and then they just tap the zettel and you're away. We've got an 80–90% take up on using the zettel instead of cash. So we got people registering beforehand. We knew we had enough dancers to get started. So lockdown ended on July the 19th, and we ran our first dance on July the 20th. So we run dances every Tuesday afternoon in Maidstone, And we've had, before lockdown, we averaged about 26 people, anywhere from 20 to 40, but averaging about 26. Since we've started again, we've run 10 sessions so far. To start with, we were only getting 8 dancers, and that's absolutely fine. We run barn dancers at weekends for customers. We charge them £220. That's a business. The Tuesday afternoons are mainly for fun. We want to dance. I want to call. We want to play music. They're all recorded sessions, so we don't have to worry. Recorded music, so we don't have to worry about a band at those ones. But even with 8 people, we're covering the cost of the hall. We're having a lot of fun, and because they were the experienced dancers, there were no beginners at that period. We were able to do lots more interesting dances. All our dancers are beginner friendly. We assume that people know nothing when they walk in off the street, and we build them up slowly. So my program for Tuesday afternoons is quite light in order to enable everybody to do it. But for the first few dancers out of lockdown, because we had fewer people and they were all more experienced, we were able to do a lot more interesting dances, ones that I wouldn't normally consider doing. So we had a lot of fun. They built up, that was the first month. The second month, we built up to averaging about 13. And that's half of what we averaged before lockdown. And that ties in with a lot of things we're seeing that Andrew and Jane only had half the numbers there. Ian Nichols has just published some surveys he did for the Southampton group, Shock, showing that only 50% of people are prepared to dance at this point in time. So I think you have to expect that you're only going to get half your normal customers. And even then, it may take some time to build up. Let's say we started with 8, 9, 8, 6, then 14, 11, 13, 13, 13. So as long as you're doing it for fun, not profit, that's fine. Of course, the different people each week, we've probably had 40 or 50 people through the door over the last 2 months. We also do swings, yeah. We started off saying do 2-hand turns, so you stay a bit further apart. All of this is a bit academic because everyone is passing through everyone else's vapor trail all the time. But it gives them a feeling that you're caring for them and providing a little more confidence by saying do a 2-hand swing if you want to stay further apart. And then we moved on to doing then a 4-hand swing with the left hand linked underneath. And then we moved to ballroom hold swings, but hip to hip, so you're not breathing on each other. Not quite as satisfying, but it works, especially if you're doing a contra and you're trying to make people end up with a man on the left, lady on the right, or the lark or the raven or whatever you want to call them. So we started off, but for the last few dances, people just have a swing when they want to have a swing. People are getting more confident. We also run Sunday afternoon dances, which we started on July the 25th. That had to be rescheduled because the government put the end of lockdown back. Those are for experienced dancers. And before lockdown, we were getting an average of 11 dancers, and now we're getting an average of 14. The keen dancers want to dance. So again, we're having a lot of fun. We've had 3 of those now, and they've worked really well. The other thing we do apart from those is run barn dances for customers. I did run one on September the 4th. That was the first one I'd done for a customer. That was a bit scary because instead of working with a group of people who you know are double vaccinated and are caring and careful, and there's a relatively small number, then you're moving into a completely unknown environment. So Karen would normally come and demonstrate and dance, join in the dances where needed and dance with everybody. But we took the decision that Karen would stay at home and I would just go and run the dance from the stage and not join in as I normally do. So it went okay, slight trepidation, but it was all right. And then we come to the Ceilidhs. We run a Ceilidh every 2 months with a live band in Ashford. And they've been going very well with an average of 72 dancers, somewhere between 60 and 100 usually. We were very concerned about this because it's a much bigger event. We've got a COVID protocol, and I think that we did forward that so hopefully anyone who's got it wants it has been sent it already. We published that in the same way that Andrew did. We've got a list of things that everyone's got to look after. So we're assuming you're double vaccinated, but not asking you to prove it. We want a lateral flow test, but not asking you to prove it. Don't come if you're ill. Stay socially distanced during entry and exit. We only ask for people to consider wearing a mask during entry and exit because they've got a lot of people coming in, leaning over Karen while they're paying. But the World Health Organization says, do not wear a mask if you're doing physical exercise because it's more dangerous. So we tell people that, and we say we don't expect masks. After every few dances, I say sanitize, hydrate. We provide sanitizers and hand wipes. We have all the fire exits and windows wide open. We got big rooms with a small number of people, lots of good airflow. That's it. And at the end of the day, the halls want us to sanitize. So at the end of the day, it's everyone, if you touched it, sanitize it. And if you used a chair, put it away. And if people are very good, they help out everywhere, and it goes very well. Kaylee was supposed to happen tonight. We've been working on a pay in advance model for the last 3 years. So we know how many people are coming roughly. We get 60 or 70 paying in advance, and we get no more than 10 usually paying on the door. And even though some of them have said we're coming, but we'll pay on the door. So we advertised the Kaylee, and we got only about 24 people pre-registering for it and paying in advance. And that's not enough to pay the band and what they're worth. Then we had a group of 7 who had paid, sending me a note saying, oh, by the way, 4 of us have chosen not to be vaccinated. I thought, okay, sorry, I've advertised this as a safe dance for people who have vaccination. People are coming because they feel safe. I'm sorry, but you can't come. So all 7 of them cancelled. And then a couple who had paid said, sorry, we've got the bug. We don't know when it's going to be over and whether we'll be safe to come. So we had a discussion with the band and decided that the best thing, given the low numbers and all the challenges, was to cancel. So sadly, we are not running a Kaylee this evening. The next one is scheduled for November the 13th. Already, the band who are scheduled to play there have said, we've got a couple of members with long COVID. One of them has other problems, COVID related, and can't play for a whole evening. Sorry, we're going to have to cancel. So I'm really hoping virtually everybody who had paid for the September the 8th to tonight's dance has rolled their money over to the November 13th Kaylee. So we've already got a certain amount of interest. I may well decide to go ahead on that one with cut the price and run it with recorded music. We've got the ability to do that. And it means we don't have the challenge of the band having problems at the last moment or worrying about the numbers. So it's a challenge, but we're doing our best. The main thing is that we're all having lots of fun. The ones that are coming. So we've run 13 dances so far, and it's all been good. We're looking forward to Lichfield Festival in 2 weeks' time, where they've got about 180 people coming. That's going to be the biggest event we've been to since it all happened. We have a magazine in Kent. We're very lucky to have Folk in Kent magazine. The first issue for 2 years has just come out. It's much thinner than usual. And whereas there used to be about 20 clubs listed in it, there are only just 8 of the 20 clubs that have restarted. Oh, on age as well. Jane and Andrew were saying that their average age was down. We've always, the Kayleys, we do get younger people, but the Tuesday afternoons and Sunday afternoons, we are an over 50s basically group. Not from desire, but just that's the way it's worked out, especially running afternoon dances. This is the English Folk Dance Society's magazine from 1921, 2 years after the Spanish flu epidemic. It contains lots and lots of articles about how many extra folk festivals there are this year and how many hundreds more dancers there are booking into all these festivals. and there's not a single mention of Spanish flu. So I live in hope. Okay, any questions?
Thank you, John. I'm just going to open up the chat before you do that. And Laura's connection's gone down, so she's not with us at the moment. But that's really helpful, John. Really very honest and open of you. Thank you. So I can see that Peter Barnard's got a question. Hello, Peter. Would you like to ask your question? Unmute yourself.
There we go. Hello, Kerry. Thanks, John. That was great. As a dance caller, to what extent, if any, did you alter any of the dances?
For the first couple of Tuesday afternoons, I didn't have any neighbour swings, and I told people to do a two-hand turn. As people got more comfortable, by the third or fourth week, I changed to much closer swings, and I still slightly avoid neighbour swings because it's just maybe a little bit of interaction too far, but I'm not really trying that hard to avoid anything anymore. We're just doing the dances we want to do and having fun. If they've come out and they're going to do that, then I could join in all the hands in lines and passing through vapor trails, then there's not much point in changing things. It was interesting that Lichfield Folk Festival, I'm running a waltz workshop, and there was a question that from the organizer saying, maybe we should change it to waltz time set dancers, because in a waltz, of course, you're in a close hold all the time. And my response was, on the Friday night, you're going to do dances with neighbour swings. You're going to swing with everyone down the line. In a waltz, you're offset. You're looking at their shoulder, not at their face. So no, I don't think there's a problem. So
okay, that's great. So circle dances as normal, holding hands, even the progressive ones, you're moving from one.
Yeah, we do. We do a complete range of dance styles: squares, circles, Sicilians, contras, English country dance, everything. I still do the same mix: barn dancers, Ceilidh dancers. I'm doing the same mix of dancers and making very little change.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
People want to do the dances they love.
No, indeed. No, absolutely. I know. I absolutely get it.
Thank you. Thank you. And Malcolm Jowett, I know you had your hand up for the last one, didn't get a chance to ask our last speakers, but would you like to ask your question now?
It was more of a sort of just a follow up on what Andrew and Jane and John have just been saying. I'm a caller with the Nottingham Club. We've been running Zoom dances since I think a week after we closed for the lockdowns, and we've had Victoria Yeomans and we've had Lynn Render and various other people joining us to call for us on Zoom. A lot of those, dances that were written specifically for it and for and adapted for it and things like that. At times it was quite upsetting because we wanted to be doing it properly, but it was better than nothing, and so on. So we kept it going. We even had a Playford ball online with over 100 connections, people dressing up and everything, and it was as good as we could make it. And we tried to run the sessions as just like a normal club night, with without sort of interviews and things like that. That's just the way we did it. We just didn't think of doing it the other way. And and it kept us going. We've started getting back to club nights now. We've done 2. We've had about half the people there, which is quite interesting what John was saying about halving the numbers. But we feel that the main reason for that is people are away on holiday. They're enjoying the fact that we've got a bit of the Indian summer, and they're off doing their holidays, now that the kids have gone back to school and so on. So, we're even thinking about, well, should we actually meet next week, because we've only got a small number, but we are going to go ahead with it and keeping going. I've also do some calling for local bands and Ceilidhs and so on. I've done 2 wedding Ceilidhs, and the attitude there from the 20 to 30 somethings there was, party like it's 2019. They were on the floor, they were mixing, they were doing all sorts. I mean, I was doing dances that were not change partners, but they were messing around, changing partners and having a fantastic time. The band and I were fairly happy. We were up on stage on the first one, and we were sat right next to an open door on the second one. So we felt reasonably okay with it, but it was just like back to normal. But the club are also trying to run a contra in next weekend. We've got Lynn Render and Contrasaurus. We're trying to push it out and make a go of it. Doing like John did, trying to get people to book in advance so that we know how many's coming. Numbers are way down on what we would expect. Did one last year, we had a hall full. 2 years ago, and we had the hall full. This time it's a bit touch and go as to whether we'll do it, but we're going to leave it a little bit longer yet.
Thank you, Malcolm. That's very helpful.
It's interesting to see, sort of we're getting the same thing. So it's not just us.
That's really helpful. So I can see I've got 3 hands up. I think Andrew and Jane probably want to respond directly to you, Malcolm, and John, if you'd like to as well. And then we've got Jill and Bob got their hand up, and that'll be enough questions for this session. As I say, there'll be a chance. We're going to go into small groups to discuss things. And you can put questions in the chat. So I'll let Andrew and Jane and John respond to Malcolm, and then we'll take Jill and Bob. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. An observation, really. John was mentioning anti-vaxxers. They are a pain. We're going to get some of them. They're principally a risk to themselves, and they are taking quite a big risk. But if you want some way of getting a handle on the risk they pose to other people, if you regard them as being equivalent to about 5 to 10 other people at the event, then you won't be far off in terms of the danger that they pose, unless they are conspicuously taking risks in other ways. So we haven't worried too much about them on the basis that the numbers are fairly low.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We had I had the same experience at the barn dance I did, as Malcolm did, that the 60 or 70 people there were crowded together closely around tables, had no problems of being close together. I didn't change my normal program for a barn dance. I had them mixing and getting close together because they obviously were happy doing that. I noticed Stephen's posted on the chat that the World Health Organization guidance, as I said, says no masks for vigorous exercise. It also says maintain 1.5 meters distance. That's really for if you're doing a solo dancing. Lots of dance studios marked out 1.5 meter squares on the floor, and you stay inside that. As soon as you start holding hands in a circle and circle left, you are passing through everyone's vapor trail. So whether you maintain a 1.5 meter distance or not, if you're moving around, you're going through the vapor trail. So I think the important thing is not to wear a mask if you're doing vigorous exercise, because it can affect your breathing. And much as we would like to stay 1.5 meters apart, we can't do our dancing and do that.
Yeah, and dilution is also important, and that makes a big difference, as is time. And when I was trying to work out whether an infected person could pass on their infection at a dance, it's questionable, actually, because, again, WHO guidance is suggesting that you need to be alongside an infected person for quite a few minutes, like 15 plus. And a lot of the scientific work that's been done on this is hours. So dancing with someone in a set, maybe you're not close enough for long enough.
Yes, the government guidelines for earlier in the year, when they were talking about sports, have a big flow chart and talk about fleeting interactions. Anything less than a second is a fleeting and less than 2 seconds was a fleeting interaction. And you need a lot of fleeting interactions before you get to medium risk.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew, Jane, and John, for all of that. I think these are the things that we'll talk about in more detail again in the small breakout rooms a little bit later on. So, as I said, I've just got time for 2 more questions. So, Jill and Bob will be next. Sue, I'm sorry, we won't have time for your question just now, but later I'll put it in the chat, and we'll definitely make sure that your question is answered. So, Jill, if you would like to ask your question.
It was a comment again, really, but following on from what John was saying, I'm running a local barn dance group. We had several meetups during the summer out of doors, and then started back into the hall in order to secure our booking there in July. And I took it very, very slowly. Most of the people that come are on the older end of the spectrum. And we're quite nervous. So we've actually got, again, about half the number of people coming that we ended up with in 2019. But I haven't done any partner change dances at all. So I've adapted quite a number of dances so that they feel safe, that they feel comfortable. And we've gradually each month just got a little bit more daring, and they've all just at the end of the evening said, this feels as though we're really dancing, we're really having fun, and we're getting back to some sort of normality. Most of the people that come are couples, so it's not been too difficult to do a lot of dances for couples or Sicilian circles, just changing holding hands so walking around a circle rather than holding hands. But we're now getting to the stage where they're quite happy to do that, because I think they've heard the news that really you don't pass much by touching people, even briefly, and we have plenty of sanitizer there, so that's working really well, and we've got lots of ventilation. But the fun thing last Saturday was I called for a local band, Brighton Cayley Collective, at a wedding, and I did a little introduction. I'm not going to do any partner changing dances, but you take it easy and so on, and they all walloped straight into it. I mean, there were no problems at all. They just had a brilliant time, and we discovered at the end that they were all doctors, so we thought, well, that was an interesting observation, really. So if they can dance and they don't care, and then that was fine by me. But the only problem we had there was that it was a barn, one door behind the band, one door way down the other end, but we insisted that we have plenty of ventilation, so they brought in lots of industrial fans, so we had a lot of air movement, which made us a lot more comfortable. So
Thank you, Jill. Yeah, thank you. Well done, that's great. So Bob, over to you.
Okay, thank you. It's clear from what people are saying that there is a strong will. People are keen to get back to dancing. It's yet to be seen whether that turns out to be rather reckless or not. And both speakers have made the point that it's up to people on their own to decide whether they should come to an event or whether they should stay away. That is actually sensible. It's the only way to go, really. But there also is an obligation on the event organizer to provide a safe environment to do that. And the people who are trying to make their own decision need to know what precautions the organizer has applied in order to make that decision. I'm particularly interested in, since it's an infection passed from person to person, which people need to be excluded from the dance venue in order to provide that safe environment. John, for example, has touched on it, saying he thought that one group of people who hadn't been vaccinated shouldn't come in, and he felt unable to tell them, you're not coming in. We have that right to refuse admission. I think perhaps other places you leave it to the people themselves to decide whether to come or not. And I think perhaps we need to be a bit more rigorous in what questions to ask people who are attending, and whether we in fact exclude certain people who don't meet the criteria. Would you like to comment on that, either speaker?
Both Andrew and myself have published on our websites that you need to be double vaccinated to attend these events. And we published our COVID protocols and said to people, we want this to be a safe environment. This is what we're doing to try and keep you safe. And if people say they've not been double vaccinated, then I just point them at the website and say, I'm really sorry, it's been advertised as a fully vaccinated event, and therefore people who are coming to the event have the expectation of having that level of safety, and we can't therefore let you come to it. That's always been done in advance so far. What will happen if an anti-vaxxer turns up on the door and gets violent? I don't know.
Yeah, well, not so much gets violent as you need to ask the questions of the people who turn up who are unknown to you and exclude them if necessary. Are you happy to do that?
Yes, yeah. We check.
No, we didn't actually say that. We said our risk assessment assumes that you are vaccinated for your own safety. We said we were not going to question anybody about anything because we didn't want to cause conflict, particularly around the entrance to the event. And if somebody turns up and says, I'm an anti-vaxxer, so there, I'm coming in, what are you actually going to do? You're putting your doorkeeper in a very dodgy position. And just because somebody hasn't had the vaccine, so long as there's not a ridiculous number of them, obviously being stupid, as I said earlier, it's like letting in another 5 or 10 people. If they're obviously ill, that's probably another matter. But I think we've got 1 or 2 people have said they won't come to our events yet because we are not questioning people. So it's had that effect. But we felt we couldn't. We certainly are not checking COVID passports. And that's fairly pointless because actually, if you read the rules around that, it says if somebody asserts that they are exempt from this, you must not question that assertion.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob and the speakers for answering in their particular situations. And I think this is the thing, this is what we're talking about here, is what are the situations and how are we as organisers and callers going to deal with that. And I thank you, Steve Rowley, for putting in the government guidelines bit there as well. So so I'm going to have to bring this section to a close, but as again, we're definitely going to be talking about these issues when we go into the breakout groups a bit later. So thank you very much, Bob. I think Laura's still, she's having some terrible internet difficulties, I'm afraid. Yeah, she's not with us yet. So it falls to me, and what a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who is Dr. Wendy Timmons, who is the chair of the Traditional Dance Forum up in Scotland and programme leader at University of Edinburgh for the MSc in Dance Science and Education. So Wendy, it's over to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kerry. And first of all, I'd like to thank the network for inviting the Traditional Dance Forum of Scotland to your event this morning. I've prepared something on the screen, so I'm going to try and share my screen, I hope. Oh, that's interesting. My screen's disappeared. Let's have another go. I see what it is. Just one moment. There it is. Now I can try. Nope. Here we go. I'm on it, and there we go. So hopefully you can see that one now. Can you see that?
We can, Wendy. It's coming up. And it'll be focused any moment now. Thank you. Okay,
yes, it does sometimes takes a little time to focus. So while it's focusing, I'll explain to you about our Getting People Dancing project. Actually came about during lockdown and discussions with our board. We'd had a lot of changes on our board. People had had to step down because they'd been on there for their term, so they were having to step down. We had a new board and we were sort of just getting discussions together about what was going to happen if and when we came back out into the real world from being locked down. And what we were talking about was things like there's clearly evidence that musculoskeletal pain and mental health issues had massively increased during the COVID-19 lockdowns. And this was a problem, and it was being reported on the news and things. But then we also sort of were looking at, well, there's evidence to suggest that social dancing can help musculoskeletal pain and mental health issues, such as anxiety, social anxiety, and people, they can provide relief to people just by expressing their emotions, and it provides them an outlet. So this was a bit of a dilemma for us. Yes, dancing is good for you. We have these problems and dancing could solve these problems, but how are we going to do it? We also were looking at, what had happened during COVID. And I've been doing a little bit of research actually within the performance arts. And what was being discovered was that for people who regularly engaged in the real thing, live dancing, some of them were just disengaging. They weren't taking part. And I hear, from the other presentations that, audiences halved, and this was happening because people just wanted to dance together and didn't like dancing online. But there's another funny thing that was happening, and I think that was the first presentation, is people were engaging who normally wouldn't engage in a live situation. And what I found in the research I've been doing in the performance arts was people felt quite safe behind their firewalls, not under the scrutiny of everybody watching them dancing. So actually there's been an increase of certain audiences to actually joining in with dance online. Which is quite an interesting one. And it was quite encouraging to hear that you're now doing at Cecil Sharp House the hybrid versions. I think that's fantastic if you can keep it going, because there definitely is an audience out there that's quite happy at home dancing behind their screen. So these were the discussions we had. And it was sort of, to dance or not to dance. And our conversations came around, at the board. So how safe is it to dance with others? And this is what we're discussing this morning. And, have we become, in some instances, perhaps too used to our own company? And, will we ever get back out there into those dance halls? And most of all, do we still have the confidence and the motivation to actually go out and negotiate a space where bodies are moving around in and out of tandem and in and out of the vapor trails and all of those things. And there's quite a lot of anxiety around that. So the getting people dancing again was actually the brainchild of Bernie Hewitt, who's with us this morning. And it was a case of, we hadn't been able to invest in projects as a forum. We're a charitable organisation and we hadn't been able to invest. So actually we had some money sitting within the forum and hadn't invested in anything over the lockdowns. And we genuinely did want to get people thinking about dancing again. And this was actually Bernie's idea, Bernie Hewitt, our treasurer. He's a caller, a musician. And it was a genuine thought. We need to find a way to spend some of this money to help people get dancing again. So the call was about providing a relatively small amount of money. There were grants up to £200, not to actually run the event, but just to plan it, to actually thinking about planning events. Then with a hope that the ones that were successful, we would try and help them find funds. We couldn't give them all the funds, but we would try and help them find the funds to actually run their projects. And the call was really successful. We had about 15, correct me if I'm wrong, Bernie, I think we had 15 entrants and we awarded 5 grants. We also had a little catalyst. There was an exhibition going on in the Storytelling Centre in Edinburgh, which is where our home is as a forum. And so it was a Bulgarian artist who's resident in Scotland. And so as a catalyst, we commissioned a live performance at this exhibition event to show people that it was safe to dance again. and it was a fusion. It was a display and a fusion of Bulgarian and Highland dancing, and that was really successful. So that was sort of the thinking behind what we did. The call went out, and there was an invitation, like I say, for proposals, just the planning stage, for planning traditional dance events in Scotland post-COVID. And we set a deadline, 30th of April, which was fantastic. And like I say, we were quite successful. So the projects that were awarded money were 5. One was this is Catherine Coops, who's with us today and going to speak about it, an autism-friendly Ceilidh, and also a webinar event, a discussion and webinar event surrounding autumn awareness events and autumn aware Ceilidhs. And that was a really good proposal. It's actually going ahead, and Kath's going to speak about this a little bit more. It's actually going ahead in October. We had a proposal from the Portobello Central, which our funds provided a catalyst for the Portobello Central discussions around a much larger project to restore a town hall for the Portobello community, which is just outside of Edinburgh. And this would include regular Ceilidh opportunities that will commence with a large Ceilidh, we're hoping, in 2022. But I'm really encouraged by the other speakers. I can see you're actually holding live events now, so this is fantastic. And the venue has a sprung floor, which is unusual nowadays, and it will ensure that future events can go ahead regularly and safely for the dance environment. So our little £200 was a whole catalyst for that discussion. They've now got much bigger funding, and this is actually going to go ahead. Another one that we awarded a grant to was to Sophie Stevenson, and this is for a step dance weekend at Fort Augustus in the Highlands. The challenge for this award project now for us is to help Sophie find funding to support the actual event. And we will be offering mentoring and advice towards her raising the funds to actually get this weekend up and running. We had a Ceilidh barn dance proposed for the Fringe 2022, which is really exciting. It's going to be a spectacular during the 2022 Edinburgh Festival. The budget is over £40,000, and the tickets will be £30. And there's already a detailed plan in place, and the organisers are really experienced in obtaining funding from Creative Scotland, which is Scotland's Arts Council, for these events. So again, this was a catalyst to just motivate and give them confidence to actually start thinking about putting these big events together again. And then finally, the last one is a beach Ceilidh in Fife. So this will be a series of activities leading to a beach Ceilidh on Hogmanay. We don't know which year yet. So their plan was to get together and do a beach Ceilidh on Hogmanay, and it will be recorded on video. The proposer has asked for assistance in obtaining funding of just over £7,000 to run this. And again, we're offering advice as board members. We can offer advice as where they might be able to find that funding. And at the moment, that's at an early stage of planning. But our little attempt to, give some money from the forum has actually led to these wonderful opportunities for people to think about. And I think it's more about the confidence to have those plans, have those ideas that, yes, this is going to happen. Another one, and this is final, and this is through the forum again, Ileana Nedcover works on the colony of artists within Abbey Hill Primary School. And we've actually planned for tomorrow, weather permitting, an outdoor Ceilidh in Holyrood Park. And it's a kids Ceilidh, so it's a family Ceilidh event with people dancing in family bubbles to try and ensure it's a little bit safer, but it is going to be outside. The live music hopefully will go ahead if it doesn't rain. If it does, then I think we are going to have to resort to recorded music. So that really is what we've been doing in Scotland, just to try and get people dancing again. I'll share this presentation as a PDF file with you, Kerry, so you can show it to the audience if they want to see it. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And I'd love to actually invite Kat to come on and talk a little bit about the autism friendly ceilidh.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Well, good morning. We're very fortunate to be running 2 events with the support of the Traditional Dance Forum of Scotland, both on the 16th of October. The first in the morning between 10 and 12 is a session on how we can make Scottish dancing more autism friendly. We've got 3 speakers. I'll be speaking about general things to consider when you're organising or running an event or teaching a class. We've got Lisa Quinn, who is the chair of Autism Rocks 5 and parent of an autistic young person. She's going to be speaking about autism in general. We have Caroline Brockbank from Ceilidhs Kids, and she's going to be doing a case study of a successful autism-friendly ceilidh she ran a while ago with an organisation called Taylor Ed in Edinburgh. We're also hoping, still haven't got someone yet, but my heart's set on it, to have an adult with autism to come and give us a perspective of what we need to do from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So why are we holding these events? I personally feel, and I think I'm not the only one, that there's a huge need to get people with autism and members of other neurodivergent groups involved in Scottish dancing. Some groups and schools are very good at including neurodivergents and just scoop them up and maybe make the necessary adjustments as they go, sort of reactively. But we thought we'd try and turn it totally on its head and have an autism-friendly ceilidh, which other people can enjoy, and maybe do as much as we could to be proactive and have things in place beforehand. It's not going to be the perfect autism-friendly ceilidh, partly because none of us are claiming to have all the answers, but also because, just like everyone else, people with autism and how it affects them is completely different. There's a saying, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, and I think that's very true. There will be people with autism who go and take part in Scottish dance events week in, week out, maybe on an almost daily basis, and are pretty much unaffected by noisy music, instructions being shouted, and contact with other people. Whereas for other people, it's a real challenge, and we can maybe just remove one of those barriers or several of those barriers, and it'll make it easier for them to join in. We're trying to make the environment welcoming for people with autism attending. Tickets will be in the form of a booklet or social story detailing, pictures of the hall from the outside, the way people will go in, pictures of Sandy who's playing the accordion, of people that are helping, just to give them as much an idea as possible and as few surprises. We'll keep the music down to a level that's quite low, and if it needs adjusted, we'll be seeking feedback, and certainly that will be done as far as possible. We'll minimise touch where possible. I'm not sure about English dancing, but in Scotland we have quite a few ceilidh dances or country dances where you swap partners. I think that'll be completely off the board. You'll just dance with whoever you want to dance with, and if there's mum and a child with autism and another child, they can all dance together. It doesn't have to be 2 people. We'll demonstrate the dances so people who are better at, people who are visual learners, that will help them, I think. We'll probably, as a country dancer, when I did my country dance teaching, I think there was listen, demonstrate, try was something that was encouraged. So we'll listen to the music, someone will do a wee demonstration, and then everyone will get up and walk it through before we dance it. We're going to try having visual signs for dances. One of the easier ones to come up with has been a St. Bernard for St. Bernard's waltz. And we're just aiming to minimise any anxiety and sensory overload that people may face. Costs, as you guys will all know, for running events are expensive. You've got the band, you've got the venue, etc. We're incredibly grateful to the Traditional Dance Forum for Scotland for funding the event and allowing us to focus on putting the best event on we can and make it available to those who need it. Because some dance events are very expensive. I think all of you who are here probably sort of try and make them more affordable. So definitely that's a route that we're going down. One, going towards COVID, we won't be asking for people to carry out lateral flow tests before they attend, because it's incredibly uncomfortable to do if you're not an autistic person. I can only imagine how hellish it must be if you do suffer from autism. And again, there's many members of that group that haven't been able to have the jab for entirely genuine reasons. So we won't be doing that, but I've been really interested to hear what you guys have all been doing, and I've been taking notes furiously, so see what I can build in there. And there's obviously a huge amount of experience here today. It's been fantastic, and been welling up sometimes to hear about all your experiences of getting people back onto the dance floor. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what you've been doing in the breakout rooms. So thanks very much, and back to Wendy.
Thank you, Kat, for that. And I'll just add, Kat, we're really trying our best at the forum to get the webinar, the talk in the beginning with your experts on autism recorded. So we would be able to share that with the network if you're interested in that recording. I'm hoping to get quite a professional recording of it, because I think these things are important to capture and share with other people. We don't often get the opportunity to get experts together and then have a Kaylee afterwards. So yeah, that's really what we've been doing in Scotland with our attempt just to get people back. And, you know, it's not just people with autism, just to be confident to go into a space. I was in our dance studio at the university yesterday with my new cohort, and it was really quite emotional. We weren't even dancing, just to step in there and have people in there, you know, talking to them. It's quite a big thing. You know, COVID's, I think, had more of an impact than we realise emotionally. We know the physical side, but I think the emotional side is something that will come out as we get back to dancing. So, yes, thank you again to the network for giving us that opportunity to showcase what we're doing in Scotland. And it really is lovely to hear what's going on in the rest of the UK. Some amazing stuff. I'd love to come down and join some of those dance sessions.
Oh, thank you so much, Wendy and Kat. Let's give you a round of applause. It just, I'm unfortunately, technical things happened at my end and I missed the beginning, so I'm sorry to have missed that. But what I did see just sounds wonderful and so exciting. So thank you for coming and joining us this morning and sharing everything you've been getting up to as well. We're going to have some time for questions. I'm sorry we have overrun time, but I'm sure we're finding this so interesting and exciting to be listening to each other. If you need a comfort break, please feel free just to mute and disappear, but let's have some questions while we're still here, and we'll have maybe take 10 minutes if that's all right. I know we're a bit over time, but if we can manage another 10 minutes, that would be wonderful for some questions for Wendy and for Kat before we take break. So pop your hands signs up, give me a wave, shout yoo-hoo if you're just on audio only. I'm going to start with Jane. There you go, Jane, right at the top there.
Thank you. It's just an advanced question. I'd really love to hear more about what comes out from your event or your events on the 16th. I've been interested in making it easier, both in my calling, but also in Oxford Ceilidhs in Oxford that I helped to organise. making dances more accessible to people. The real challenge for me is making an event that's accessible for everybody, and I want to improve on that. We know that there are Oxford customers who and volunteers, in fact, who are autistic, and we want to do better. And I find it hard to know what to do, even though I ask, because, as you say, everybody's needs are very different. So having your perspective on things would be brilliant.
Thank you very much, Jane. My screen all switched around there. I didn't know, did Wendy, did you want to reply to that?
No, I was just going to say that I see in the chat there, can you join the webinar? I'm sure you will be able to, because it's online. So unless I'm wrong, Kat, I think if we send the link to the webinar, anybody who wants to join those discussions will be able to. And yeah, I mean, I don't know whether the way forward is what they're doing in Cecil Sharp House, and that is to have the hybrid, because sometimes people are more comfortable behind their screens dancing and just joining in and having that social engagement remotely. So maybe that's the way forward.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. Rachel Elliott has a question for us.
Hi, Wendy. You've answered one of my questions, which is fantastic. Yes, I'm sure many of us would love to attend that webinar, and also just to extend, the invitation. Basically, any events, folk education network events that we run are absolutely, we welcome people from wherever, because, really dancing has no national boundaries, and we're just all about sharing, learning and good practice. And so, Catherine, anybody who wants to join any of our events, you are more than welcome. Just keep an eye out on EFDSS social media or join our education mailing list and you'll find out. I just wanted to clarify, and actually it's a big sort of applause really to London Barn Dance for running the hybrid model. For our activities, the sort of ones that the English Folk Dance and Song Society itself is running at Cecil Sharp House, actually we are not running a hybrid model. We are, number one, we're not running our family Ceilidhs this autumn because we had too many other things to get back in person. But also I think it's really what Jane and Andrew flagged up. They have a fantastic, quite large volunteer committee supporting, and unfortunately we're not in that position because we have paid staff and we have limited staff and stewards and so on. Our regular class just got back off to a start last week and got off to a good start, I'm really delighted to say. So I think the hybrid thing is very interesting, but I think it's time and person expensive. So I don't think, unfortunately, that's something personally that we're going to be able to do. But obviously in our building, Cecil Sharp House, different people run activities. It's not just us who run them. So London Barn Dance run their dances. We have the Scottish Ceilidh Club run their events. We have Knees Up Ceilidhs. We have different people running different activities who are all kind of doing their own and different approaches. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that really. And thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation, and to everybody so far. Right, that's me. Over and out.
Thank you, Rachel. And yes, now that we're sort of connected, we're definitely going to advertise your events across our forum. I think it's important that we understand that there's everybody in the UK doing these things.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Rachel. Graham Clark, you're ready with your hand up.
Yeah. Not really a question, but sort of general feedback on what Wendy's been saying, and also on the mini grants initiative. What I'm very aware that there are a couple of folk dance clubs in my vicinity of long standing that obviously stopped operating at the start of COVID, and I've had no word from them as to whether they will start up again. My suspicion is that they won't, because their numbers were declining even before COVID, and it may be that they end up just not viable going forward. And therefore, I just want to say I welcome any creative ideas that are floating around to maintain the presence of dance anywhere, particularly at a very local level, and anything that can open things up to a wider audience, I think deserves every support that it can be given.
Thanks, Graham. That's really, really interesting, really important. And I think we're going to have, after our break, time to discuss these kinds of things. So we had a couple of topics in mind, but, you know, people have got things that are, like you say, this is so important to get people back dancing and to support those who are maybe still on the fence a bit of how to do it. So, yeah, let's definitely come back to that topic, Graham, when we get back together. I think we've got time. John's waving his hand at me, and then we might have a little comfort break, if that's all right.
I was just going to respond to Graham by saying that, as I mentioned, the Folk in Kent magazine is down from 20 clubs to 8 clubs. And I think the only way to solve it is to get a time machine, go back 50 years and persuade the people running those clubs to recruit youngsters. That's my experience in Kent, is a complete failure to recruit over the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And they're suffering now because they have no younger people, which is why we focus very much, especially in the Kerry environment, on getting a very wide age range. It's without that, we're dead.
Yeah, if I can just say, sorry, I put my virtual background up. You wouldn't want to see my conservatory. It's not that interesting, but I put that virtual background up and it just represents the same situation within the Morris world. Yeah, there are teams out there that, as you say, should have been recruiting 20, 30 years ago and didn't. And yeah, the O for the time machine.
Oh, thank you, everybody. I think it's time, unless Kerry had anything else to say, should we have a little comfort break and then come back and have some lovely discussions?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, and thank you, our speakers. Absolutely fantastic.